I was able to take out that equity as a HELOC, as a home equity line of credit, and paid off the student loan. Bam, gone. In one fell swoop. I wrote that one check and it was gonzo.
Welcome to the Student Loan Podcast.
Here, you'll find practical advice on tackling student loan debt, paying down your higher education expenses,
and inspiring stories about paying off student loans. We're your hosts, Daphne Vanessa
and Shamil Rodriguez.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Student Loan Podcast. Today's episode is going to be stellar. We have here today Miss Pamela Keith, really someone who we are honored to have on our podcast, and I never thought we'd have the opportunity to be interviewing someone of your caliber. So we are so grateful to have you on our podcast today. And with that, let's get started.
Outstanding. Thank you for having me. And it's my pleasure to be here. And I hope you're not feeling too, don't put me too high on a pedestal because I have expectations, okay?
Absolutely. So before we get started, let's tell everyone about your super successful career. You've gone from everything. You've been at the highest levels. Talk to our audience about your success story so that they can be inspired.
I don't like to call it a success story because I think that success is defined by a whole lot more things than titles, right? I like to rather just call it my unusual journey. And I'm happy that my unusual journey doesn't have to look like anybody else's. It's
I love that.
Right. So I started out, I went to law school on an epiphany. I had an aha moment when the Rodney King thing happened. I finally figured out what I was supposed to be and what my purpose was. And so I decided I was going to go to law school, and I made an amazing, thoughtful, strategic, well-detailed plan on how to get into law school. I had zero plan whatsoever about how to pay for law school. And so I ended up going to Boston College Law School on the East Coast. And it was at the time I went to law school from 92 to 95. And that was really hot. What was hot in the law at the time was mergers and acquisitions and all the sort of corporate swashbuckling stuff. And it's a very competitive environment. And so even though I knew I went to law school to fight for people's rights, when I got there, I just wanted to prove that I could get on the law review. I wanted to prove I wanted to prove that I could get callbacks from all those interviews. And guess what? And so I got 36 interviews, I got 32 callbacks, and I got 4 different offices of SCAD giving me offers, and the money was so good. I was just like, oh, okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Because, I was in debt. Obviously, I had to take huge loans to go to Boston College Law School, and I was like, oh, I'm going to make good money. What I didn't understand was that it's soul-sucking. And so halfway through my law career, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm on this path to go into an area of law I have no interest in and I suck at, and even though it will pay me well, that ain't my success, right? You telling me you want me to be at your firm validates me in a certain way, but I still actually have to live in that environment. And I don't actually want to live in that environment no matter how badly I want to be validated that way. So I decided to go a totally different path, and I loved moot court, and I loved oral argument. As you can tell, I have a natural affinity for that sort of thing. And so I decided to go to the Navy, and I went to be a Navy JAG. And, to be fair, I'm going to be completely transparent with your audience. I did see a movie called A Few Good Men, and that did play a very large role in my decision. And so that's how I ended. My father was a naval officer, so I grew up with the Navy experience in the background. And so I just said, hey, I want to be a Navy JAG. And at the time, the military allowed you to defer payment on your student loans for, I think, the first 3 years, which meant that I could, at least start out my adult life basically not paying my law school loans. And so that made it more attractive because it obviously was a whole lot less money than, SCAD and ARPS, or the firm that I actually got my 2L summer with was Baker and McKenzie. And so, I'm like, okay, so I'm going to be a JAG. Now, a lot of people were like, you could have gone to Baker McKenzie and you decided to go to the Navy. And I was like, yeah, because I wanted to test my chops as a litigator. I did not want to be in somebody's due diligence black hole. I did not want to be a mushroom in somebody's back room. So that's why I made the choice that I did. And I never regretted that decision, even though I made a lot less money coming out of law school. But it was mitigated to some extent because I wasn't paying law school loans at that time. When those law school loans came due, I had to make a different choice, right? So I went back to the big firm world, and I went to Morgan, Lewis, and Bacchus, and then I went to Jones Day and did the whole make big money, work hard hours thing. And that facilitated my hobby. My hobby at the time was like renovating houses.
Oh, wow.
I bought a fixer-upper in a bad part of DC and for $250,000, and I poured my heart and soul and personal sweat equity into fixing it up. And then all of a sudden, white people decided they liked that neighborhood, and all of a sudden that little 250 went up to 500 in like 2-3 years, and I had equity in the house. And so I took out equity in the house and I paid off the student loans.
Love it.
From that point on, I went from Morgan Lewis to Jones Day to Ogletree Deacons. I moved to the Midwest, which was a character building experience. I loved Chicago for 3 months out of the year.
Oh.
After that, I was okay at Ogletree. I wasn't extremely happy, but I was at least in my lane of traditional labor law. I was doing my thing. I was valued, whatever. I was making good money. And I got a call in February about a job in Jupiter, Florida. I did not know where Jupiter, Florida was. I knew it was in Florida, but that'd be the West Coast, North Coast. I don't know. But it was a job interview in Florida in February. So I was like, oh yeah, okay, I'll do that.
So
I had no intention of going in-house. I had no intention of working for this company, but it turns out that it was a really good in-house gig with the biggest energy company in the country, biggest producer of clean and renewable energy in the country. And I was like, oh, and it was also unionized up, down, and sideways, so I could do labor relations work inside instead of from the outside. And I was like, oh, I like this, because then I could do like more positive union relation development type stuff too, not just like coming in and like dealing with problem children. So I did that, and I moved to Jupiter. I didn't know a soul in Florida. And once I was in Florida, of course, corporate law, being in-house is very different than it is in being a law firm. Corporate law departments are much more flat. When I was hired by under one CEO that had a very, very different ethos and worldview than the guy who replaced him. The guy who replaced him was much more Mr. Hedge Fund, Mr. Let's, cut heads and cut overhead. And, he was Mr. like, anyway, long story short, they decided they wanted to reduce heads in legal. And it was kind of one of those last one in, first one out kind of things. And I was like, well, okay, job stability, not sure.
Yep.
And so I started to get approached about jobs in the business unit, like, oh, do you have any interest in managing, power generation? And I'm like, no. No,
Like, I don't.
no, I'm not. So as this was happening, I was getting an opportunity to perhaps, I was thinking about like, should I stay here? Should I go back to the firm world? Should I go to another in-house? Should I what? And the reality was I was asking myself the wrong question. Not what can I do, but what do I want to do?
Right.
And I'm like super, super passionate about politics, super, super passionate about what's happening in criminal justice, what's happening in environmental, what's happening in women's rights and immigrant rights and other things. And so I was like, look, if you can do what you want, why don't you do what you want? And I was like, well, yeah, but I don't know how to do it. So, I did what I always do. When I don't know how to do something, I Google it.
Yeah. Yep. No, that's so real.
And Google does not actually tell you how to run for U.S. Senate, but it does tell you that you should probably check out your local Democratic club or caucus. And I started there. And I ran for Senate because I thought, well, I haven't lived here long enough to be to make a claim about local knowledge. So let me just run statewide because I can talk about federal issues up, down, and sideways.
Yep.
So that's why I did. Now, did I know inter-party politics? Absolutely not. And did I know that 99% of politics is about patronage, not policy? Didn't know that either. But I learned, and I'm a stick with it kind of chick. So I stuck with it. But that's kind of how I ended up being the first African-American woman ever to run for U.S. Senate in the history of the state of Florida. That is, and qualified to be on the ballot, which, by the way, is way more challenging than you think it is.
Yes. Those signatures.
Right? And being a candidate. No, it's not even signatures. It's even more complicated than that. It's Florida. And, I ended up running for Congress. And I have been constantly building my voice in the political arena, and just came to understand that what made me unique in the political arena was not the extent to which I could sound like a Democratic candidate, right? Because there are a lot of people who can sound like a Democratic candidate, right? My voice is unique in the political space because I say what other people are too chicken shit to say. So I came to understand that what made me unique and what my special gift is my fearlessness, because anybody can vote along the party lines. And I don't aspire to do that. So maybe now's not my time to be in Congress. Maybe my time is to be out here sort of rallying the troops. But I consider that success too. That's why I was like, be very careful about the word success. I didn't win my campaign. I won the nomination with 80% of the vote on a quarter of the money of my predecessors. I consider that success. I turned out more Democrats in my district by 30,000 votes than have ever voted in my district. I consider that success.
Yes.
And in doing so, I've maintained my integrity, my fearlessness, my willingness to confront bullshit, whether it comes from the GOP, the Democrats, the independents, or anybody else.
Yeah, I love that.
And I continue to grow my influence through social media and other things, and my impact. And to me, that is success, or success in progress, I should say.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, just what you've done, so many people look up to you, so you're successful. I mean, there's so much to unpack in where you went. I want to go all the way back to when you were talking about those decision points, right? Do I go to big law or do I not? I'm switching and pivoting and going to JAG. I'm saying no to this opportunity to lead a business when they're cutting heads in legal. Like what helps you go through those decision points when you have those crucial, pivotal moments?
The first thing I do is I'm asking myself the important question. Am I making a decision out of fear of losing something or desire to gain something? Right? So am I making this move because I'm afraid of what will happen? And so here's the thing about Black people and Black women in particular with law degrees. We work so hard to get there. There's so many people who tend to depend on us. We always feel like any kind of setback, any kind of failure is an indictment of our entire history, of everything we've done up to that point. And we don't understand that, white men walk this world with their, pardon my French, balls swinging in the wind. Right? They will take any kind of risk. And they are the biggest and most profound believers of on-the-job training. There is no white dude, 22-year-old white dude, if you ask him, do you think you can be vice president of corporate compliance? They're going to say, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, sure, why not? Right? So, and we will be offered that job. Be like, well, I'm not sure. Like, what if it's too big a job for me? What if I mess it up? I'm not sure. I need to go get that degree, and then I got to get that certification, and let me make sure I got the credential. And that's the way we talk to ourselves, because we're afraid of screwing up. We're real afraid of screwing up because we feel like screwing up or failing or something not working out is an indictment of us.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a kick, and that's because we are so trained, especially in the law world, and especially in the law firm world, to put our sense of our self-worth on a platter and hand it over to some partner to tell us whether we're any good. Yeah. They tell us whether we're good researchers, whether we're good thinkers, whether we're good writers, whether we fit the team, have the right attitude, dress right, speak right, think right. Like, they tell us everything that's right about us. And when they give us that validation, we feel on cloud nine. And when they don't, we feel gutted and broken down and just totally depressed and so sad. And it is because we hand to people judgment about us who do not walk in our shoes. Who do not do what we do. Why should I ask a white dude whether he can appreciate Black girl magic? Of course he cannot. So it took me a while to process what was happening with my soul when I was allowing others to determine for me how good I am at what they think I should be doing, because they can't even fathom what I actually can do.
Yep.
It wasn't until I was on a stage in front of 5,000 people, bringing them to their feet, that I finally understood what it is that I can do.
Wow.
And I guarantee you that white partner can't do it.
No.
So I have my little magic, and it's okay. But at those points of inflection in my life and in those decisions, I asked myself the hard question. I forced myself to confront, am I moving out of fear? Am I going the easy path? Am I looking at all my options? And the most important thing is this getting me closer to my final destination? This is what I did not do until I was much later in life. And so I want to tell your listeners, this is really, really important, right? And I said this in the panel, I really want to emphasize this. No matter what kind of job you have, whether you're an employee, a partner, an associate, in-house counsel, VP, whatever you are still the president of me.com. You are the architect of your enterprise, because you are an entity that competes in the marketplace. You provide a product, and that product is you and what you bring to the table. So you ought to be really, really, really focused on making sure that your product is badass. That is not just credentials, right? That's creativity, ingenuity, and of course, connection, access.
Yep.
Network,
Yep.
Right? So, but if you won't know what me.com's, if I would ask you, write a statement that says that at its zenith point, me.com is what? What is it? It is the baddest, most inspiring, most fearless, thought-provoking, fearless leader of progressive thought from a Black woman's perspective. That is the me.com, that is Pam Keith. So I ought not take options that come my way, no matter how attractive, that move me away from the zenith, from the ultimate, from the best for me.com.
Yep.
Right? So if you are struggling to find a sort of unifying theory of your life decision-making, the unifying theory of your life decision-making ought to be, what is the best and highest, most fabulous purpose and use of me.com, whatever your me.com is. Whatever that is, that ought to be the North Star of your decision-making. And
No, that is huge.
on that path should lead you there.
I love that. And like that can apply whether you're trying to make a decision on where to go to college or like what job to get after college, law school. There's so many points of major decision making where what is your North Star? Like that is a big question that I don't know that I knew when I was applying to college. So
I was to stumble into what I did well, which just happened to be something I liked to do.
Yep.
It's not always true that those two things are coextensive. You can be really good at something you don't like doing.
I know. I know too well.
Right? So you got to figure out what is the me.com that marries up what I do well with what I like doing.
Yeah.
Because if you make your me.com what I can get well compensated for, you can get well compensated for doing a whole lot of stuff that makes you miserable. So what is the uniqueness that you bring to the marketplace? I mean, if you're a product, why is your product better than other products?
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I think our audience needed to hear that, maybe because I needed to hear that, but I think that's such a powerful statement, right? To figure out what is that end goal? What is your end in mind? Who are you? And are the steps that you're taking, is that getting you there or is it bringing you further away? And that now it makes total sense.
Right? Are you swirling? Just take whatever's coming your way. Are you tumbleweed in your own future? Like, that's not what you want to be. And me.com is not just your well-being. And that's why I would say that I think I said this in the panel, maybe I didn't. I think that it's much more important to have wealth than money. And because money comes and money goes, but wealth starts with the word well. And so to me, to be wealthy is to have all of your components in a richness state: your soul, your body, your relationships, your spiritual development, your friendships, your professional, and your financial. All of it working and clicking is when you are well. Otherwise, you just got money. You can be unhealthy in money. You could be in a lousy relationship with money, right? You can be spiritually bankrupt with money, but you're not well. You're rich, but you're not wealthy. Different.
Completely true. I'm thinking, as the audience, it really might be curious about the HELOC piece, right?
Yeah. So let me explain how this works, because it was really more serendipity. I'm not claiming to be some financial guru, but I bought my house for $250K. Right. I had just south of 100,000 worth of law school debt. I had 99 something of law school debt. But because I poured money into fixing this house up, I painted it, redid the floors, I brought it back to its beauty, right? Like I did this. All of a sudden, all of that equity that was in the house, people were, remember by then we're talking, it's 2003, 2004. People are throwing money at you if you got halfway decent credit. And I was real careful to stay up on my student loans when I was paying them, because I want no late nothing. So I was just jamming on my law school payments, and I was like pouring all of my spare money for my bonuses, everything into this house to kind of fix it up and make it really beautiful. And then when it was, I had it appraised, and the appraiser was like, "Damn, you got like $400,000 worth of equity in this house." Now, granted, that was way over, but it was a significant amount of equity in the house, partly because of the fix-upper that I did, but also because I chose to buy in a neighborhood that was transitional. The way that you find value in a real estate market is to find, at least in my opinion, and I am not an expert, so I'm not claiming to be, but my vision was buy a fixer-upper where you yourself are making the decisions on the upgrades. Because if you're buying somebody else's decisions on refurbishment, they're going to go half-ass, not tacky, and major premium on what they do to the house. So do not pay for other people's renovations. Renovate yourself. Number two, buy in a city if you can, because there's always more demand in and around work. A place less commute to work is high premium now in particular. So I bought like 15 minutes from downtown DC. Yeah, it was the hood, but it was still 15 minutes from downtown DC. And there's no hood in DC anymore, because if anything within 15 minutes is like now valuable. Right? So think of things that make real estate valuable. Is it close? There are three things that I think, or four things that make real estate valuable. Close to downtown, number one. Close to beautiful water or mountains or something that's desirable to look at. Number two, great schools. Number three, a very important one. And then number four is it within 15 minutes of a Whole Foods. If it's within 15 minutes of a Whole Foods did your research for you.
Yes, no, they did. Their real estate strategy is the best thing in their financial state.
So if you go to a new city or a new town, you don't know where you want to park yourself. Find the Whole Foods, put a pin in it, draw a 15-minute circle around your Whole Foods, and that's where you focus your energies. And you find the cheapest spot within that circle, and that's where you buy, because that's going to necessarily increase in value, because that's how Whole Foods strategizes. It's not necessarily where it's hot now, but it's going to be. And they've already done all the legwork to figure that out, right? Yeah. So that's how I pick my neighborhood. I want to be around my peoples. My peoples are not always in the nicest neighborhoods, but I was comfortable. I was like, I'm good. I bought that house. I poured probably about $80,000, almost 90, into fixing it up. So altogether, my equity in that, what I poured into the house was like $250,000 for the house, which was what my mortgage was, plus about another $80,000 for the fixing up and the painting and the stripping, which weekend after weekend, I just poured myself into it. When it was all said and done, it appraised for about $460,000. I was able to take out that equity as a HELOC, as a home equity line of credit, and paid off the student loan. Bam, gone. In one fell swoop. I wrote that one check and it was gonzo.
And so how much in student loans did you have?
At that time I still had well over 85 or 86,000. Like I
Okay.
had a lot of money, but I took out almost $200,000 worth of equity from the house, or $150-something thousand of equity in the house. So not only could I pay back what I put in the house, but I could also pay off the student loan.
And was the interest rate on the HELOC higher or lower than the
At
interest
the
rate on
time,
the
it was lower.
Nice.
Remember how everybody was like, oh, you've got home equity. Go take out mortgages. We want mortgages. Of course, eventually all of that went tits up. But the long and the short of it is, I had a really good home equity, and I was going through USAA. Another advantage of having been in the Navy was that I had this great company that was willing to finance anything because they love their customers. And so I had a mortgage. My base mortgage was as 4%, and my HELOC was 3.8 or 3.5 or something like that. My student interest loan was 8%.
Yeah, no, you were winning. You were saving.
And once that student loan got off my credit report, so you get a little bonus bell for having paid off your student loans, right? But every payment that I was making in my HELOC and on my mortgage was building equity in the house. I was buying property every month instead of paying off some dude every month. And so when I ultimately sold the house, and I sold it, I held on to it a long time. It was an income property for me when I moved away from DC. I finally sold it because, campaign life made it sort of impossible to keep it up and whatever. I sold it for just shy of $1 million. So when the person bought that house, they absorbed the loan, not me.
Oh, I love that.
Yes.
Oh man. We need to heavily investigate this strategy.
Right. You can use a HELOC for any kind of loan consolidation purpose.
Yeah.
Right. You can use it for credit card consolidation. You can use it for student loans. Right. And a HELOC is a dischargeable debt. So if you ever did end up in mortgage, bankrupt or whatever, you could actually discharge a HELOC. You cannot discharge a student loan.
Cannot.
Right. So you get a totally different kind of animal, and you got all these statutes out there to help you with your mortgage. You got all these protections to not keep you from being foreclosed on. You got all this stuff out there to help a homeowner that is not there to help a student loan holder.
As a former candidate, do you think that student loan should have those protections?
Obviously, and I ran on that, right? Like, I believe in student loan debt forgiveness. I also believe that we should be making, at least the first 2, if not the first 4 years of college free. I mean, I'm a super bleeding heart progressive on all of these things. But and I know that everything in our politics is about money and who has access to policymakers, and bankers have access to policymakers.
Absolutely.
Students do not, unless they win elections.
Mm-hmm.
So part of my ministry is getting people like y'all to run for office.
Shamil, that's you.
Nope.
It's definitely not me.
Not me, but then be mad at Matt Gaetz. Yeah. Well, there's a Matt Gaetz because everybody else said not me.
Yeah. But what I am interested in, and that I think would be useful, is sort of forming those communities that talk about policy and drive initiatives forward. That I love doing. That I can do for free forever for the rest of my life.
And I am with you, girl. Like, everybody's not necessarily the person that has to be out front, but I will just remind people that running for office is not just necessarily running for Congress, right? There are all kinds of offices that are not so visible. There are all kinds of decision makers that have major impact on the municipal, state, community level. And it's not necessarily being a candidate, it's being a leader. Candidacy is a tiny section of the time that you serve.
Yeah.
Right? Perhaps it has an outsized role in what people do, but is there a banking commission in your state? There probably is. Who appoints the person on that banking commission? Might be your governor, right? Okay, well, who's running for governor in your state? That could potentially win. Are you close to that person? Have you contributed to their campaign? Have you offered to have a town hall with students with them? Have you volunteered on their campaigns? Because the thing is, when I tell you it's all about access, I mean it in every conceivable way. The way you get access to power is to snuggle up to power.
But that's no, it's probably
I'm
true.
gonna
That's
quote
true.
that one. That's a good one.
But there's many ways that you can snuggle up to power,
Yeah.
right? Golfing is a great way to snuggle up to power. I don't like to personally golf myself. I used to do it. I don't anymore. I play tennis, but whatever. A lot of snuggling gets done on a golf course, people. But are you volunteering for the person who could become the next mayor of your city? Are you knocking doors for the person who's going to be the city council member that's going to apportion? Are you helping the school board person get elected who's going to decide whether critical race theory is taught in your school or not? Not that that's a thing for K through 12, but anyway, you understand my point.
No, yeah.
My point is you influence people in power when you are close to people in power. And there are a lot of ways to get close to people in power that are not necessarily buying that access.
Yeah.
Right? It does take the concept of playing a long game, but maybe one of your girlfriends that you went to law school with is running for city council. Have you called her? Have you offered to host something for
Actually, but yes, no, you're.
I'm sure, Shamil, one of your boys might be really, really interested in being the mayor or something. Are you helping him? Are you talking to him? Are you bringing people to the table for him? Are you connecting him to your crew? Are you bringing him on your podcast? Every candidate is looking for two things: exposure, support, money. That's what they need. Any way that you help, you get closer to access to that person.
Boy, I understand that all too well. And I think you make a great point, because that's really where it comes from. But I want to shift gears, if you don't mind, Pam. I want to really, because you glossed over it, and I was like, wait a minute, like I wrote it down. I was like, one, the HELOC. So Daphne, I'm glad you brought that back up, right? But the part that I think was really helpful and that we get a lot of positive feedback on from our audience is like, it seems, and I love the energy that you bring, because it's like that you're like, no, I'm going to get it done because I have to get it done, whatever that it is. Can you walk us through what it was like when you were like, I'm making this plan for law school, but you were like, I didn't have a plan to pay for law school?
I didn't even think about it, Shamil, because I'll be honest, I was so insecure that I would get in. I don't know why, because you all know the pre-law school game. Like one day you feel like for sure you're going to get in, and the next day you're like, oh.
Yeah.
The next, right? Like, so I was in that roller coaster, and I had gone to UC Davis undergraduate and graduate school. Both of them, my parents paid for my undergraduate degree, but it was in-state tuition. By the way, that's another tip for your students. If you can benefit from in-state tuition for law school, that ought to be one of your tricks and tips to stay in-state if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Because that can cut off a whole bunch of debt for you.
Absolutely.
So, I was at UC Davis. I had decided that I wanted to go East Coast because I wanted a different experience, and I wanted a private school rather than big college, state, whatever, because I wasn't thinking about money. Why? Because my parents paid for my undergrad, which was like, $3,000. And I got fully funded for my master's, which I got a TA-ship. So I taught my way through graduate school. And so I had no debt from graduate school. So I'd never taken out loans. I had never strategized around taking out loans, and I would have never qualified for a Pell Grant or anything like that. So I didn't know anything about that. So just one of those things where it was just kind of out of my, I figured I'd figure it out if I got in.
No,
I just forgot about it once I got in, because I was just too happy to have gotten in. So I went to Boston. I had to figure out how to get a coat and that kind of thing. I can get out to Chestnut Hill. I go to the bursar's office. It's like, okay, how do you plan? Your first payment is $36,212. How do you plan on paying for that? Are you planning to pay by check or credit card? And I was like, for reals? There's such a thing as $32,000 on a credit card? I like when I was in college, like your max was like $1,500 or $200,000 or something. Anyway, so I'm like, oh shit. But here's another thing that I want your listeners to know is that private universities like that have endowments. They can tap into their endowments. If you are a person who is interested in going into public, public service law, with a non-governmental organization, or you want to do a public interest law, go to the ritziest private school you can go to, because a whole lot of them have endowments to pay off to pay for law school for people who are going to go into public interest law. Yale has will pay your law school. Stanford, however you get in, they will cover you. Right. So, but you do have to work in public interest for that to actually work. So that's one way. When I went into the military, they only deferred law school loans. Now, after 9/11, they pay off law school loans. If you get beyond your first 4 years, they will pay off your entire law school. And in fact, if you're in the military before you go to law school, they have a thing called a LEP program. It's a little program, it's not a big program, but they will literally pay you a full salary to go to law school and pay your entire law school. And my best friend, who is currently the Judge Advocate General of the United States Navy, he and I were besties when he was a lieutenant commander and I was a lieutenant. Now he's, rear admiral, and I'm just me. And, but the Navy paid for his undergraduate education from Annapolis. It paid for his law school from Baylor. It paid for a master's degree in international relations from George Washington University. And it paid him his full salary for every day that he was in school. Now,
that is why people join the military. Just kidding.
You want to talk about a good gig.
Yeah.
That's he never had to take out a loan, right? Because he was in that LEP program. And the LEP program, they pay for your law school and they pay you while you are in law school, which is the double bonus, right? And the beautiful thing is they pay you your salary, but they also pay you a housing
BAH.
This housing, and you can either use it for rent or you can use it to buy property. And many people in the military, especially the officer ranks, buy property with their housing allowance every duty station they have. So they have a house in Hawaii, they have a house in DC, they have a house in Jacksonville, and now they've accumulated property that Uncle Sam has paid for. They have never been in debt. And so they end up retiring, and then they retire in 20 years with 3/4 of their salary anyway for the rest of their lives, plus all medical. It's not a bad deal.
No, it's not. And is that only Navy, or is that for other?
No, that's all the services. That's all the services.
Wow. I think I can't do the push-ups. I can't do the push-ups.
Please. Look, staff officers. Now, if you're a Marine, this is a unique difference. The Marines, you would really have to be like a regular Marine officer who happens to be a lawyer. In all of the other services, you're what we call a staff officer. You are not. You go through a different training process. You go through a different. You have a different promotion scale. The whole thing, right? So if you were going to be driving ships in the Navy as an officer, you would go to officer candidate school.
Yeah.
But because you already have a law degree, you're not going to drive any ships. You go to officer indoctrination school. Totally different, shorter, easier, not nearly as many push-ups. You have to do a few, but not very many. And what's really cool is that you can build towards your retirement and your retirement pay and your medical benefits while being a reservist. So you can serve for 4 years, then be in the reserve element. And all this time that you're in reserves, you're accruing retirement points. And you are having the Navy pay off your law school loans.
Yeah.
It's not a bad deal.
It's not. I've heard so many success stories from people in the military on financial freedom, like either they're multimillionaires or they've paid off huge 6-figure student loans. But the military really does have great programs, it seems like, for building wealth, which is ironic because you think, do they do that because they think you're going to die? I always just wonder what is in it for the government, but maybe it's recruiting.
It's a tool to attract talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the incentives. Yep.
It's the incentives, and it's the stability of the income. I mean, there are some downsides. You have to move to Kandahar or things like that. Not necessarily fabulous. I spent almost 2 years in Bahrain But I chose to do that. I'm not saying that it wasn't fabulous, because I chose to do that. I'm so glad I did. When I went into the military, it had never, ever crossed my mind that I would go into politics. But when I went into politics, having served in the military was everything.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So if
In
you
Florida? Yes.
follow me on Twitter, you saw my clap back at Dan Crenshaw from Texas, trying to tell one of our Black female Olympians how she should behave, and I had to just punch him in his mouth. And because I am a veteran, that I have the standing to do that.
Yeah, for real.
So yeah, being a veteran changes a lot, and if politics is the future, being a veteran is also really good if you want to be a judge, right? It's a great. And a lot of corporations look for it. But you know who doesn't really like military law type experience? Big firms. They're not big fans.
Really? Why?
Because military law is 90% oral.
Oh, yeah.
And firm law is like 90% written. And so having had both of those experiences gave me the ability to be both really, really good with marshaling facts and creating a narrative and telling a story, but also really good at the nuances of legal distinctions. That is what legal writing is all about, right? Yeah. Both of them. But it was painful transitioning from being able to, like in my law days, in my Navy days, I would get on a helicopter, fly from Bahrain over to the USS John C. Stennis or Ronald Reagan or whatever. I would meet my guy, right? First thing he would do is lie to me. And I'm like, look, I don't really care what you did or you didn't do. I want to know who's going to say something good about you. And what is the story here? What is the story I can sell? And he will start telling me a story, and I'll be like, nope, can't sell that because that sounds like BS. You better tell me a better story that I can sell. Then I would meet whoever I thought could be a good witness for this person, try to ascertain what really happened. And then within 24 to 48 hours, the case goes. And I was there advocating for my client, either court-martial administrative hearing, and I'd be telling the whole story, and I would be putting on I was the world's best excuse maker. If there was an Olympic sport for making excuses for stuff, that I would have gotten a gold medal. But it made me really, really able to marshal facts and tell a story and pull people's hearts into it and emotions into it. And that was a skill set that a lot of my law firm peeps did not have at all.
And that's a huge skill, because that's almost the art of storytelling, right? That's what drives sales. It makes people vote for you. That's how you move large groups of people, which is honestly probably one of the most important skill sets anybody can have.
Exactly. And so when you have that experience, and plus you learn how to relate to so many different kinds of people, because you meet people from every walk of life, from every part of the country, you become part of something so much bigger than yourself. And it is the best icebreaker. It is the best icebreaker. I've had fruitful and productive conversations with 90-year-old white dudes from Alabama because we both served. And having served a very, very unique fraternity to be a part of. And it's a unique thing that I share with my father. Yes, he's my father. Yes, I'm his daughter, but I outrank him. So we share that Navy bond. And he was so proud of me. And I actually ended up being battalion commander of my class. And so like I showed leadership in that context, right? And he was so proud of that. So proud that his daughter, could show leadership in that context. And so anyway, I highly recommend military life for people who feel like that could be a good fit for them. It is challenging in different kinds of ways than law firm world is. It can be just as intense in terms of hours, in terms of intensity of what's going on. It can be downright damn scary. It can be incredibly emotional. It can be a long hours away from your family, months away from the people you love. It can be a lot of negative things, but it also can be the place where you make the best, most deepest, most incredible friendships that you will ever have. It can challenge you and grow you. It can throw responsibilities at you that you would never get as a junior or associate. And it can put you on a really solid financial footing if you make smart decisions as you go.
Yeah. Shamil, I feel like this is all you. You guys have so much in common.
I was just enjoying what Pam is saying because we've talked about having a military benefits episode at some point, and I feel like this is definitely something that I enjoy. And hey, I took advantage of law school and got it paid for by the military, so I can't say anything about that. I'm right there with you, Pam.
If you can make Uncle Sam pay for it, absolutely do.
That's right.
Yep.
We pay taxes, so there we go.
Ain't that the truth? So I recommend that. So what I would say to people that are looking to avoid getting in debt, because we talked about this a little bit, Daphne, before we got started, about this Hobbesian choice where you have to end up in so much debt to get the kind of job that's supposed to give you peace of mind and financial stability.
Yep.
And the problem is that once you get there to that job, all that money you make is servicing this debt. And
Yep.
it's robbing you of the fruits of your service and your efforts.
Yeah.
You got to figure out how to get out from under that rock and strategize. Unlike myself, make a plan to actually pay for law school. Don't make a plan to get into law school. Think about, hey, could I be the person who flips a house? Can I use a HELOC to pay off my law school loans? Right?
Yeah.
Or can I use credit cards to pay off my law school loans and then discharge the credit cards? I don't know. That's not something I've done, but I've heard people do it.
That's
Because again, the most important thing is to change the nature of the loan that you're paying. It from a type of loan that is very rigid and like an anchor around your neck to the kind of loan that's easily discharged or that's paid for in equity or that's viewed positively on the ledger or something. Because that's debt. You're just moving the debt around like a little like 3-card Monte kind of thing.
such a good strategy because there's a lot of conversation around, oh, don't convert your federal student loan. And I think I've fallen privy to that as well, where they try to sell you on the protections that a federal student loan offers. But when you think about it,
what are you talking about? Do you know that there were some people who couldn't get stimulus payments because they had federal loans out?
Yep.
I'm like, are you kidding me? If the first chance that you get to convert your student loan into some other kind of loan, do it. Do it, do it, do it. I don't care if it's credit card loan. I don't care if it's HELOC. I don't care what kind of loan it is. Hey, agricultural loan. I don't care.
Those exist.
They do. And if you have any interest in being in cannabis business, now is a good time to make yourself a farmer.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make here is student loan debt is the worst kind of debt out there, period, full stop.
No, it is. It really is. Even with the quote protections, when you sit down and think about it and you read the fine print, there are no protections. You're not protected. You can't discharge it. It carries over past generations.
Oh, okay.
It's actually a pretty bad deal.
It's a horrible deal. And it's like, oh, well, we can guarantee that your interest rate doesn't go up. Yeah, but it's 8%.
Yeah.
Well, you're not doing me a favor here, boo.
Yeah.
So I literally dropped from 8% to 4 point or 3.8 or 4, something like that, 3.5% on my HELOC. How's that not winning?
It is. No, it is. We've had another guest on who paid a lot of his student loans with multifamily investing. So multifamily real estate investing. So converting, and he made it, I think it was on the podcast where he said, what's the interest rate of your student loan and what's the rate of return I'm getting on an investment? The rate of return I'm getting on an investment is much higher. So might as well put my money into real estate. It was just genius.
Even if you don't want to do a HELOC, if you can buy a house cheap and convert it and make it an Airbnb,
yes,
right? That's steady of revenue if you pick your locations well.
Yeah.
Right. But whatever you do, make it a priority to convert as much of your student loan to some other kind of debt as you can, and make it a priority to get that paid off as soon as you can, because it's not like you're not going to pay the full corpus. The only time that you're going to pay the full corpus is the first month. If you pay it off that first month, then you're paying that number. Every month after that, you're paying that number plus. So if you
compounding interest,
you pay that number plus 30 years of other stuff. That's how they get you.
Yeah.
You become a slave you become a slave to the loan, and you do not want to be that. You don't want to be in bondage to this loan.
Yeah. So many people are feeling that, right? Where the student loan is almost hanging over their head, and navigating your decisions are almost, am I going to be able to pay my student loans? And that's not living, right? That if every day you're thinking about student loans, you're probably not happy or at your happiest.
Or if you're saying, I can't take a sabbatical from my incredibly stressful job because, or I don't want to have a baby until my student loans
Yes.
are off, or we're not going to get married, we're not going to buy a house until like, dude,
Part of that.
what you are allowing is for this debt to decide your life.
Yeah.
And, you know, oh, I'm not going to quit this horrible job that's making me incredibly stressed out because I got to pay off my student loans.
Yep.
Because here's the thing, in the priority, and just as me personally, and the priority of what is important to me in my life, number one is my health. And I happen to have been down that YouTube wormhole about what stress does to you. And we have the low level stress, the constant non-ending low level stress of being people of color in this country.
Yeah, I know.
Right? So whatever
Yeah.
other stress life throws at you, just add another 10-15% on top of that.
Exactly. The fear of dying every day. Yes.
So I said, I am not going to I had to come to a point where I came to peace with the fact that if my firm was going to let me go because they couldn't get 2,200 hours out of me, or 2,400 hours, or whatever the hell it was,
Yeah.
I was like, then so be it. But I am going on my vacation.
Good
And
for you.
I told people on the panel this: be jealous of your vacation. Make sure that you keep it and that you use it and you get the hell out of town. I don't care where you go. I personally like going overseas. I like to go to Croatia. I like to go hiking. I like to go horseback riding. I like to go skiing. I like to go away. I like to go to nature, and I like to go to cool cities that I've never been to. I like to go to Australia. I like to go. But whatever you do, use your vacation, because your clarity will come when you are away.
Yeah.
And it is when you are able to recharge your batteries. If every vacation you just hang at home so that the kids can do something with you, and you go to camp and no. You need to get away, either with or without the kids.
And it's hard though, right? When you're taking care of other people, when do you get away, right? Because
You
vacation is never vacation.
You plan. And of course, Daphne, I told you earlier, when I know how to do something, what do? I Google it.
Yes.
Google it. Start thinking, if I need to have a 2-week vacation and I need something for my kids to do, then I need to find a camp for 2 weeks that my kids will be delighted to go to. And I need to start saving so that I can go on vacation and my kids can be at camp and everybody be cool.
Yeah.
So if your vacation is not this year, if it's only every other year, that's okay, because you're still going to be looking forward to that amazing 2 weeks in Bora Bora with the kids at band camp, you and your hubby or your loved one or your significant other, or just by yourself in Bora Bora chilling on the beach. And the thing will happen is that you will be so eager to get there, and it'll give you something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And then when you come back, you will have de-stressed. You will have learned something new about yourself, about your environment, a new culture, gotten a good tan, had a few Mai Tais, you know what I mean? That you're re-energized. You've allowed some of that constant, perpetual, low-level stress to bleed out of you.
Yeah.
It's important to do that.
No, it is. And you think people should be making time for vacation, making time to recharge, even though they have student loans?
Absolutely. You pay your soul before you pay the man.
That's a tweet.
Pay your soul for the work that you do. Pay your soul for the sacrifices that you've made. Pay your soul and be good to your soul before you pay the man. Because what? You're just a number to him. You're just a bank. You're just an account. If he gets mad, so what?
Yeah.
One of the things I had to learn along the line was what to say, so what to.
Mm.
I had to learn to say some so what. There was stuff that I was terrified about. I was so afraid of. And then when it actually happened, I was like, I'm still here.
Yep.
Still alive. Okay. All right. Well, the world is not in fact imploded. So yeah, I guess I can survive that.
I love that.
Soul before you pay the man. I am telling you, you will never regret that. You will never regret that. Take care of yourself, eat well, sleep well, take your vacations, exercise. You only got one body, and all the riches in the world will still suck if you get cancer, you get a stroke, you have, constant doctor's appointments, you're sitting around for test results, your family's worried about you, you're deciding whether or not you're going to tell your job or your spouse or whatever. Your life sucks in that moment. Doesn't matter how much is in the bank.
Yep.
Now that may happen to you anyway, but don't help it along.
Mm.
Well said. Well said.
Huge. Pam, what are your next steps from where you are today?
My next steps is I am working on a fintech product for the political lane that is new, that is unique, and is a game changer and disruptive to the marketplace. That is my next step.
That's exciting. Are you going to announce that here on the Student Loan Podcast?
Exactly. It's coming, and it's a game changer, and it's something I'm super proud of.
That's so exciting. Well, we cannot wait.
So Pam, how can we be supportive in that way, even though you haven't announced it yet? Is there like a newsletter to sign up for, or how do we be supportive
There's a website,
for you?
it's Fight for Florida's Future. So it's actually fight for the number 4 fl.com, fight the word FIGHT, the number 4 fl.com. It is a website that talks about the bigger project, which is to change how we compete for elections here in Florida and try to democratize democracy a little bit. But the tech component is a part of that. So when I talk about changing data in the Democratic side, that is what I'm talking about.
That is so exciting. Well, we love technology, obviously, biased. So we will definitely stay in the loop. And audience, you guys will hear hopefully from us when this drops, because we will be closely following Pam.
We're hoping, we've got our fingers crossed, we're hoping that we can get it up and running and get really impactful for this cycle. But again, this is all about changing how, you cannot keep doing the same thing and they think you can get a different outcome. That's just not a thing. So we're coming at it from a completely different angle.
Love it. Love that. That is exciting.
Like that. And Pam, what's the best way? You gave us that. So what's the best way for people to get in touch with you? Because I know, you're out there pushing the message and you're doing what you need to do, and I love it. So how do we get people to reach out to you?
The best thing to do is to hit me up on either LinkedIn. I'm Pam Keith in LinkedIn. I'm on @PamKeithFL on Twitter. I am voracious on Twitter. So, if for some reason you can't DM me, just send me a regular tweet and say, "Hey Pam, I'm trying to DM you," and I'll follow you so you can DM me. Or you can send an email to me. My email is, should I tell everybody my email? Probably not.
It's risky, but you can.
Send me and I will definitely hit you back. That is the easiest way. That's in fact how Daphne got to me. So I will definitely hit you back, and you follow me on Instagram. However, I am not a great Instagrammer because I'm not voyeuristic like that. And so I do have an Instagram. I'm not on there all that often. I am on Clubhouse every blue moon, not all that often, but Twitter's really the most, and of course Facebook. Pam Keith FL on Facebook. I have both a Pam Keith and a Pam Keith FL Facebook page, and you can always message me on there.
Awesome. Well, thank you. This was a fantastic episode. I feel like there were so many opportunities for people to have their minds blown, right? From the HELOC, like amazing story, to how you pivoted at each point to your decision making for those big points. I think that there's a wealth of information on this podcast episode, and we're really, really excited that we were able to interview you. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'd be happy to come back. And I'm so proud of what you all are doing. It's necessary, it's innovative, and it's value add. So congratulations on doing something super cool.
Thank you. It's fun.
For more information on today's episode, visit thestudentloanpodcast.com/episode 36. That's thestudentloanpodcast.com/episode 36.